all the trees of the field will clap their hands. The trees of the field will clap their hands. The trees of the field will clap their hands as you go out with joy. Rejoice, Connie. Rejoice in the Lord always.
All right.
And again I say,
Good advice.
rejoice. You shall go out with joy and be led forth with peace. The mountains and the hills will break forth before you. There'll be shouts of joy, and all the trees of the field will clap their hands. And all the trees of the field will clap their hands. The trees of the field will clap their hands. The trees of the field will clap their hands as you go out with joy.
Caught up with you.
All right.
Somebody want to say it one more time with words? Oh, we got it. We know that one. We know that one.
Awake, O Israel, put off your slumber, and the truth shall make you free. For out of Zion comes your Redeemer in the year of Jubilee. Oh, hallelujah, oh, hallelujah, hallelujah, praise the Lord. Oh, hallelujah, oh, hallelujah, hallelujah, praise the Lord. For in the furnace of much affliction I have chosen you, behold. And so for iron I'll give you silver, and for brass I'll give you gold. Oh, hallelujah, oh, hallelujah, hallelujah, praise the Lord. Hallelujah, oh, hallelujah, hallelujah, praise the Lord. You are my chosen, for I have sought you. You are graven on my hands. Those who are scattered, they shall come back to their land. Oh, hallelujah, oh, hallelujah, hallelujah, praise the Lord. Oh, hallelujah, oh, hallelujah, hallelujah, praise the Lord. Okay. I can hear you guys talking.
No, you can't.
Oh, say shalom bin Ramah. Hooyah, say shalom aleinu. Ve'aka Yisrael. V'imru, amen. Oh, say shalom bin Ramah. Say shalom aleinu, ve'aka Yisrael, v'imru, amen. Yah say shalom, Yah say shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'aka Yisrael. Yah say shalom, Yah say shalom. Shalom aleinu, Yaakov Yisrael. Yah say shalom, Yah say shalom. Shalom aleinu, Yaakov Yisrael. Yah say shalom, Yah say shalom. Shalom aleinu, Yaakov Yisrael. Yah say shalom, Yah say shalom. Shalom aleinu, Yaakov Yisrael. Are these songs getting higher, or is my voice
I
getting
know.
funny? I had to change the key. I keep trying to be good, and that was like an eye opener. Really? Can't do it in the original key anymore? No. So I have to substitute whatever voice I'm in. We'll pretend the level of energy is in the other song. So this is a good song. Speaking of Johnny B. Good and energy. I love the Lord 'cause he hears my voice. I love the Lord 'cause he hears my cry. I love the Lord 'cause he hears my prayer. Turning his ear always to me. Turning his ear always to me. Call on his name. He will always hear you. Call on the name of Yeshua our Lord. Call on his name. He is always near you. Call on the name of Yeshua our Lord. Because he is faithful, I'm calling him on my name. Because he is faithful, I'm calling the Lord. Because he is faithful, I'm calling him on my knees. Because he is faithful, I'm calling the Lord. Call on his name. He will always hear you. Call on the name of Yeshua our Lord. Call on his name. He is always near you. Call on the name of Yeshua our Lord. Because he is faithful, I'm calling him on my knees. Because he is faithful, I'm calling the Lord. Because he is faithful, I'm calling him on my knees. Because he is faithful, I'm calling the Lord. Ooh. Right for the note, and I topped out. Okay, one more. Then I can wait for the swelling to go down. Okay. Oh yeah, that's nice. Sing hallelujah to the Lord. Sing hallelujah to the Lord. Sing hallelujah. Sing hallelujah. Sing hallelujah to the Lord. Yeshua is coming back again. Yeshua is coming back again. Yeshua is coming. Yeshua is coming. Yeshua is coming back again. He will come back to save his own. He will come back to save his own. He will come back to save. He will come back to save. He will come back to save his own. So let us all worship him in love. Let us all worship him in love. Let us all worship him. Let us all worship him. Let us all worship him in love. Yeshua is coming back again. We're gonna do sing hallelujah. It's pronouncement time. I'm pro announcement.
That's very kind of you.
Yes.
Soon we'll have to teach everyone the announcement song
Yes.
that you did at summer camp. Did you ever go to summer camp and sing the announcement song?
Summer camp is in the announcements.
Teach it to us.
Not right now. It's lengthy and I need my husband. Actually, I need my sister-in-law too.
To do the announcement.
There's a special announcement song, like when you go to summer camp,
Yeah.
and they always, that's the big thing at summer camp, announcements. And so there's a song, like you're in the meal
you give us-
hall, and you did a multi-verse song about announcements.
Just a little bit, just what you can remember.
Announcements, 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 and that's just the beginning of it.
Okay.
And it has several verses. Anybody know this song? No, just you,
You
Patrice.
can literally sing anything.
He knows, look, my husband's waving.
Yes, he is.
And so we'll get together all the different verses that you and
I see that hand.
learn, because they're,
It's classroom management, get your attention strategy.
and it's
Yep.
not only a funny song to sing, it's easy, it's catchy, and it makes fun of the administration, which is, as we all know, that's what preteens love to do.
Yes.
Would we agree with that? Preteens love to make fun of who's in charge. They enjoy it very much. Hi, good evening. Shabbat shalom. Good to see you. Noticing we're very women heavy tonight, so hope some more testosterone shows up. Probably later. I do want to say this caught my eye, but it should be first. So thank you for everyone who helped work with the retreat and the retreat committee, and they're mentioned here on the blue sheet in your bulletin. Let's all give them a round of applause. Yay, thank you. I thought it was, you know me, I have these vague negative feelings about camping. And I love nature. I love nature when I don't have to suffer to see it and appreciate it. That's when I really love nature, when I don't have to become part of nature to appreciate nature. I can see it and love it and not suffer for it. Anybody with me on that?
Like
The
a syrup?
non-suffering to do nature. No. Really? I don't need to chop wood to appreciate the value of a fire. Really have already learned that lesson. It's not fun for me. People were talking about, when we were on the retreat, people said, well, once I did this and once that. Well, I just want to say that, I come from a community where I was in the Girl Scouts and the Girl Scouts, and you were in the Girl Scouts, and I was in the Girl Scouts into high school. And one memorable trip with the Girl Scout troop was snowshoeing for 3 miles.
You get a merit badge?
Huh?
Did they give you a merit
No, there's
badge?
no stinking merit badge for snowshoeing for 3 miles. You have to do stuff and check off things off the list. You can't just be awarding yourself. I
You don't have a
finished stuff.
sash with all the little buttons?
I did, but you have to you can't just award yourself these things. You have to do things and they have to be checked off and approved. And
No snowshoeing.
was no snowshoe, not then. I know, I would have looked into it. So that was one time. Then we did snow camping. Snow camping is when you have unheated cabins with bunk beds and you come out and you cook breakfast in the snow and the fire in the snow and relight the fire in the snow. I don't want to hear anybody complain about I have to get in line for my breakfast. I don't want to hear it. Oh, and how did I get up on that? It was that nature thing. Tomorrow morning, if you're up and ready for it, you can come to our less formal Shabbat service. It's right here in this very room where they actually discuss and read in more detail the Torah passage for the week. That's on here. John and I already started our courses for the semester right next door in the Bayside room, and they're listed here on the blue sheet. Mine is Historical Geography of the Bible, and since we just missed the first class, you really didn't miss much. So if that's of interest to you, please feel free to come and sample it. And John is Messianic Apologetics. explaining reasons for and answering questions about your faith. Once again, if you want to go to the expert in that field, I'd say it's him. And trust me, you can't pay him enough to teach you this stuff. So don't even try. Just let it go and just appreciate it. Just say thanks, and he'll like you a lot. That'll be good. When he comes home, he'll be so happy. Nice. Okay. They're on Thursday nights. Don't forget the blue boxes in the back are for anything that you can give us. Right now, thank you, Gary. We're in the midst of negotiations for actually getting that door. This one right over here. The one that those of us who sit on this side, the ones we might want to, like, if we see a fire from the Shabbat candles, we might want to go out that door. It's crazy of me. I know, I get these wacky ideas. But right now, we can't. Well, we could, but the fire will be reaching us by the time we get it open. But anyway, we're in negotiations for who and how can fix that door in the best way possible with the fewest amount of house visits. So that's the kind of very down-to-earth thing we do with your offerings in the blue box. So every time you wonder, I wonder what they spend all that money on. Many of us could tell you the very, very down and dirty and prosaic things that we have to spend money on here. Even though the important thing is not the money, the important thing is our family, our congregational family. We still have to think about earthly things like money every now and then. Gee, I can't believe there aren't more things I have to announce. It seemed like forever since I had to announce things. Oh, by the way, speaking of down-to-earth things, on the bottom of the blue sheet, it says great opportunities. If you have any inkling that you could help, by helping, I do not mean, like if I say we need help with painting the building, I would not expect you to volunteer to paint the whole thing by yourself. That's not how we roll here. We need groups, small groups of people. If we each pitch in a little bit, a lot can get done. And so if we each pitch in what we could about taking care of children in the back room, that would be helpful. See Jenny, or you can see the rabbi. Coordinate the upkeep and repair of the building. As I said, the latest opportunity to do that was trying to figure out how to get that door fixed where it's not going to cost us $35,000. And so if you have ideas on that, or if you have criticisms of things in the past, my idea for you is volunteer to do something on that group, with that group. Well, it's almost February 1st. Wasn't it just Thanksgiving like 3 days ago? Seriously. No, it's Patrice. It's just you. You're the only one. So I talked to my brother today. I don't do that all the time. So I talked to my brother. He lives in the Land O'Lakes. And, he has grandchildren and things, even though he's also retired. And so we were trying to set up a date for getting together to have lunch. So we meet over in the Citrus Park area because it seems to be just about halfway between our two homes. And now that he's retired from the state of Florida, we can have lunch during the daytimes. It's nice, right? And here's the thing. So we said, John's busy, I'm busy, you're busy. So what's a good date? We came up with February 12th. February 12th, should be familiar to older people because we knew it as Lincoln's birthday. That was Lincoln's birthday, but it was also our father's birthday. And in about 2 weeks, he will have been 100 years old. And I said that to my brother. I said, it's his 100th birthday. Someone related to me was 100 years old. So that, I said, does that give you pause? And he goes, no, because that's my brother. That's my brother, just happy-go-lucky. No, not happy. He's the opposite of happy-go-lucky. But whether we are enjoying ourselves, whether we're having fun or not, time flies. And so, do the most good you can now. Don't plan on doing it after you retire. Don't plan on doing it after your kids are old enough. Don't plan on doing it after you get married. Don't plan on doing it when we only have basically now. So for now, I'm glad you came to celebrate Shabbat. I hope you don't regret that decision. I don't think you will. And let's all remember to thank God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who's brought us to this day, upheld us, and caused us to enjoy the season we find ourselves in right now. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Just a quick PS on part of one of those announcements. If you are in Dr. Patrice's historical geography course and you did not get a map manual, you can pick your copy up in the foyer, not now. It's on the back table. And then feel free to see either me or Matt. We can tell you the cost and how you can pay what you owe. Fair enough? All right, that having been said, we're ready to begin. And as we begin, we remember that this is a very special day. Every day, of course, is special, but certain days are specialer. And one of those specialer days is Shabbat. And we're reminded of the specialness of Shabbat as we join on pages 8 to 11, as Jacob leads us with Veshamru. It reminds us that Shabbat is a permanent sign or guarantee of the forever contract that God has made with us as his people. So, Veshamru, pages 8 to 11.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולמות, היא לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. Together, the children of Israel shall keep the Sabbath, observing the Sabbath throughout their generations as an everlasting covenant. It is a sign between me and the children of Israel forever, that in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, and on the seventh day he ceased from work and rested.
Truly a special day which we now inaugurate as we light the Shabbat lights this evening.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu v'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who has set us apart by your commandments and commanded us to light the candles for the Sabbath. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu v'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahoyoter legoyim v'natan lanu Yeshua Mishikenu ha'ola olam. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who has sanctified us by your commandments and commanded us to be a light for the nations and gave us Yeshua our Messiah, the light of the world. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat also stands as the guarantee that God will act on behalf of his people, and our Tehillah Habrit Kanashah portion reminds us he has done exactly that. As we join on pages 136 and 137, the top of those pages, we will say he brought down rulers from their thrones and lifted up the humble. That's what we're about to read in the next several weeks. One of those instances where God has done as he has promised he would do. And so our response should be, Romama nafshi et Adonai yitagel ruchi be'elohei yishi. Together,
My soul praises the Lord, and my spirit rejoices in God my Savior. For he has made mindful of the humble state of his servant. From now on all generations will call me blessed. For the Mighty One has done great things for me. Holy is his name. His mercy extends to those who fear him from generation to generation. He has performed mighty deeds with his arm. He has scattered those who are bowed in their inmost thoughts. He has brought down rulers from their thrones, but has lifted up the humble. He has filled the hungry with good things, but he has sent the rich away empty. He has helped his servant Israel, remembering to be merciful to Abraham and his descendants forever, even as he said to our fathers.
One of the signs that he does act on behalf of his people is that he has in the past done so, and one of the ways in which he has done so is when he took up residence among us, entered our history, to secure our relationship with him and our destiny forever. In the meantime, he now sits in the place of ultimate authority, which is the throne room then that we enter on pages 40 and 41 as we respond with Elohim Asher.
האלוהים אשר דיבר מקדם פעמים רבות ובדרכים רבות אל אבות ביד הנביאים דיבר עלינו באחרית הימים האלה ביד הבן אשר שם ליורשתו וידו עשה את העולמים וזהר כבודו עושה כל בדברו, רב הגבורה, ולאחר שיעשה, תהיו חטאים, ישב לימין הגדולה. In the past, God spoke to our fathers through the prophets, and many times in various ways. But now in the end of days, he has spoken to us by the Messiah, his Son, whom he appointed the heir of all things, and through whom he made the universe. The Son is the full radiance of God's glory, and the flawless manifestation of his reality. He sustains all things by his powerful word. After he made atonement for sins, he sat down in the place of authority, beside the majesty in heaven. True and firm, established and lasting, right and faithful, loved and treasured, desired and pleasant, feared and mighty, ordered and acceptable, good and beautiful is this word to us forever and ever.
We continue responding to him as we offer up our praises, our gratitude, on pages 156 and 157 through Ohr Chadash. And we also remind us as we do offer up our gratitude to our God, not only for what he has done, but also for what he will do, which is why we ask that he would bring about the return of the Messiah soon, even in our days. Pages 156 and 157.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, ויעמד יברח ירותי, וימליק מלכותי, ויצמח פורקני וגרד משיחי, וחייכון ויומכון, וחיי בכל בית ישראל, בהר גלה ובזמן קריב ויאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם ולעולמיה יתברך. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם ולעולמיה יתברך. וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי קודשה בריחו. לעילא מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, ושפחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמא ויאמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה בן שמעיה, וחיים טובים עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ויאמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ויאמרו amen. Glorified and sanctified be his great name in the world which is created according to his will. May he bring about the reign of his kingdom and cause his salvation to sprout. And bring near his Messiah in your lifetime and in your days, and in the life of all the house of Israel, speedily, yes soon, and say, Amen. May his great name be blessed forever and forever, eternally. Blessed and praised, glorified and exalted, extolled and honored, adored and lauded be the name of the Holy One, blessed be he, who is high above, far above all blessings and hymns, praises and consolations which are spoken in the world, and say, Amen. May there be great peace from heaven and good life for us and for all Israel, and say, Amen. He who makes peace in the heavenly realms, may he make peace for us and for all Israel, and say, Amen.
Truly, he is the one who's far above all blessings, hymns, praises, and consolations which we can offer, which are spoken in the world, which is why then we respond on pages 88 and 89. Truly, there is none like you, O Lord, among the gods. In Kamoka is that response.
אין כמוך ואלוהים אדוני, ואין כמעשיך. מלכות כמלכות כל עולמים, וממשלתך בכל דור ודור, בכל דור ודור. אדוני מלך, אדוני מלך, אדוני מלוך לעולם ועד. אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום. There is none like you among the gods, my Lord, and there is nothing that compares to your deeds. Your kingdom is a kingdom that endures for all eternity, and your sovereignty extends throughout all generations. The Lord reigns, the Lord has reigned, the Lord shall reign throughout eternity. The Lord will bless his people with peace.
And now it comes our turn to respond on pages 34 to 39 with the Shema as we rise and face Jerusalem, the direction of the ark. And we in effect say not only that the Lord reigns, but we want you, O Lord, to reign in and throughout all of our lives. Pages 34 to 39 is that response.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem, Kevod Malchuto, Leolam Vaed. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, וכל המקל וכל נפשך וכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, ושבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, וקשתך וחומך, וקשרתם מאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וקטלתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord alone. Blessed be he whose glorious kingdom is eternal. Love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all your life, and with all your strength. These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Tie them as reminders on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the doorframes of your houses and on your gates.
We've listened to what are effectively instructions for us as to how we should respond. We now personalize those instructions in that response as we turn to the reader portions for this evening. The abridged on the top of pages 60 to 61, then we move to paragraph 5, pages 74 to 77, as we ask our God to grant us the knowledge of his ways and to direct our hearts to his worship as we anticipate the lengthening of the light of the Messiah, the time when God will restore his presence to Jerusalem. Utilize these words then to shape your response and build on them. Baruch atah Adonai HaMachzir Shechinato L'Tzion. Blessed are you, O Lord. You are the one who will return your presence to Zion. And we anticipate at that time now, as we join on pages 88 and 89 for Vayhi and so on, we look forward to the time when the word of the Lord will go out of Jerusalem and the Torah from Mount Zion, and the world, in fact, will respond.
ויהי בנצו אהרון ויאמר משה קומה אדוני ויפוצו בך וינוסו לפניך מפניך כי מציון תצא תורה כי מציון תצא תורה ודבר אדוני מירושלים ברוך שנתן תורה תורה ברוך שנתן תורה תורה לעמו ישראל בקדושתו. And it came to pass, whenever the ark went forward, Moses would say, Arise, O Lord, and let your enemies be scattered. May those who hate you flee from before you. For from Zion shall go forth the Torah, and the word of the Lord out of Jerusalem. Blessed be he who in holiness gave the Torah to his people, Israel.
And now his people, Israel, and those who join together with us, we now respond on pages 133 and then the insert to this tremendous treasure that he has given to us.
The ark now unveils its treasure.
To our eyes, minds, and hearts.
Inside the scroll of Torah stands.
It stands there with all its richness and wisdom.
As we listen, voices speak, voices of our ancestors.
Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Joseph, and Moses.
O God, they bring us your instructions for us.
Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, and Miriam speak to us as well.
O God, they move us to respond to your promises to us.
We are grateful for your words, the words of Torah.
Hear, O Israel, the Lord calls.
We will hear your words that we may learn them, love them, live them.
What does the Lord require of you? To fear him, love him, serve him, and walk in all his ways.
All the Lord has said, we will do.
The Torah of the Lord is perfect, restoring the soul. The teaching of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple.
The precepts of the Lord are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of the Lord is pure, enlightening the eyes.
Happy is the one who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the way of sinners, nor sits in the seat of the scornful.
But our delight is in the Torah of the Lord, and in his Torah we will meditate day and night.
We shall be like a tree planted by streams of waters, that brings forth its fruit in its season.
And whose leaf does not wither, and in whatever we do we shall prosper.
A new heart also will I give you, and a new spirit will I put within you.
For my ordinances which I command you are not too difficult for you, neither are they far off.
Do we make the Torah void through faith? Not at all. We establish Torah.
So then the Torah is holy, and the commandment is holy, just, and good.
That the righteous requirements of Torah might be fully met in us, who do not live according to our evil inclinations, but according to the Ruach Hashem.
The day will come when my Torah will flow from Zion, and the word of the Lord.
Mishabarak Eloteinu, Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov. He who blessed our fathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. May he bless Matt. May he bless Patrice. May he bless Rabbi John. And may he bless Sharon, who have all come up to honor God in the Torah. May the Holy One bless them and their families and send blessing and prosperity on all the work of their hands. Baruch et Adonai HaMavorach. Baruch Adonai HaMavorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu michol ha'amim v'natan lahanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah. Amen. Bless the Lord who is blessed.
Bless the Lord who is blessed forever and ever.
Blessed are you, O Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who chose us from all peoples and gave to us the Torah. Blessed are you, O Lord, giver of the Torah.
Judaism is a religion of variety. So I'm going to throw you a curve. Put a little variety into the service. Now's the time I'm going to ask you to pick up your bulletin, to look at the inside cover, and simply follow along as I read. As he pauses for everyone to find the Hebrew. V'adaber Elohim el Moshe v'yomer elav Ani Adonai Vaera El Avraham El Yitzhak Ve'el Yaakov Ve'el Shaddai Ushmi Adonai Lo Nodati Lahem. You may be seated. Now, normally the text would begin, and the Lord spoke to Moses. This text doesn't begin that way. It says, and God spoke to Moses. Now, why would it be structured that way? Because there's going to be an emphasis on that particular name of God that we often use in English as Adonai. Anyhow, he spoke to Moses, and he said to him, I am the Lord. Stressing this particular one of his names. And then as the Parsha itself is called Vaera, I appeared to Abraham. Oh, by the way, he appeared in some amazing ways to Abraham, but that's not part of our story tonight. Appeared to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. And he tells us in what way he did. He appeared to them as El Shaddai. Amazing name. God who's more than sufficient for every one of our needs is the meaning of that particular name. Then he says, but by my name, Adonai, or the Lord, I did not show myself or reveal myself to them. Very interesting text. A lot of stuff here, none of which I will tell you about now. But pay attention as the text continues in the reading, and then in its own way, as it stresses the names of God, reflects back to a text we read last week.
I'm reading Exodus 6, 4 through 8. Also with them I established my covenant to give them the land of Canaan, the land where they wandered about and lived as foreigners. Moreover, I have heard the groaning of the people of Israel, whom the Egyptians are keeping in slavery. And I have remembered my covenant. Therefore, say to the people of Israel, I am Adonai. I will free you from the forced labor of the Egyptians, rescue you from their oppression, and redeem you with an outstretched arm and with great judgments. I will take you as my people, and I will be your God. Then you will know that I am Adonai, your God, who freed you from the forced labor of the Egyptians. I will bring you into the land which I swore to give to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I will give it to you as your inheritance. I am Adonai.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah et emet, v'chai olam natav b'tocheinu. Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah. Amen. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who gave us the Torah of truth and life everlasting planted in our midst. Blessed are you, O Lord, giver of the Torah.
Yes, he did give us the Torah. Granted, it was directly to our ancestors. But as they stood there, we in a sense stood with them, as we now, in fact, do stand before him and acknowledge as they acknowledged, this is the word that you've delivered directly to us. Pages 98 and 99 is that response for Zod HaTorah. Transliteration is found on page 95.
Vezot HaTorah asher sa Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai beyad Moshe. This is the Torah which Moses placed before the children of Israel, and it is according with the Lord's commands by the hand of Moses.
You may be seated.
I'm reading from Exodus 1. These are the names of the sons of Israel who came into Egypt with Jacob. Each man came with his household: Reuben, Simon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Benjamin, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. All told, there were 70 descendants of Jacob. Joseph was already in Egypt.
Part of the blessings over the Torah, it reminded us that life everlasting was what he planted in our midst or among us. It was in fact a tree of life that he planted. Etz Chaim is the response and the acknowledgement of that reality. And because of that, we can say to him, renew our days as of old. That response is pages 96 and 97.
Etz Chaim hi lemachazikim ba v'tom keha meusha deracheha darkei noam v'chol nativoteha shalom. Hashivenu Shalomenu Kadesh Yameinu Kekedem. Hashivenu Adonai Elecha Benashuva. Kadesh Yameinu Kadesh Yameinu Kekedem. A tree of life it is to those who take hold of it, and happy are those who support it. Its ways are ways of blessedness, and all its paths are peace. Turn us, Lord, to you, and let us return. Renew our days as of old.
And now with that reality part of our lives, we do in fact stand once again before him. As the priests did, so we, in their shoes, stand before him and acknowledge, as we do on pages 98 and 99. Ufnucho Yomar.
Uvnocho Yomar, Shuva, Adonai Rovot Alfei Yisrael. When the ark rested, Moses would say, "Return, O Lord, to the myriads of Israel's families. Arise, O Lord, to your resting place, you and your mighty ark. Clothe your priests with righteousness. May those who have experienced your faithful love shout for joy. For the sake of your servant David, don't delay the return of your Messiah. Ba'avor David Abdecha, al tashay b'nei Mishpecha. Ki lekach tov natati lechem, torati al ta'azovu. I give you good instruction. Do not forsake my Torah."
And I give you a little bit of further good instruction. Please greet those around you.
The one you just crunched.
There you go.
Oh, yes. Flower power.
Okay, by all means, feel free to conclude.
Yeah.
The Parsha, the passage from last week, as you heard it read yet again tonight, started out. In fact, the whole book started out this way. And these are the names of the children of Israel who came into Egypt with Jacob. Each one came with his household or family. Reuven, Shimon, etc. With our reading of the Parsha for last week, we once again began our journey through the book of Exodus. Now, many have pointed out, while observing the fact that the text began with a vav, what we would translate and, as it opens that text, that therefore the book of Exodus is truly a continuation of the material found in Genesis. Likewise, this text from last week has a remarkable thematic connection with the book of Genesis. Genesis we also call Bereshit, beginning, because it's the book of beginnings. That book which we've read during the previous weeks. It records the creation, or the beginning, as its name indicates, of the people of Israel and the events that culminated in what you might call the first exile, namely Egypt. The book Shemot, or Names, provides the Torah's account of Israel's redemption. That's a term that we frequently use, but frequently don't understand. It means God's rescue, or Israel's rescue and liberation from the severity of that first exile under this ruler Pharaoh. And then it tells us of the people's commitment to serve the one true benevolent king, God himself. And in fact, Genesis begins with God intimately walking with his people in the garden. And Exodus concludes with the divine presence, the Shekinah, God himself, once again, quite literally living among his people in the Mishkan, or the tabernacle, and as Leviticus goes on to say, walking among their tents. One of my favorite rabbis of old, Nachmanides, suggests the following. He says, while Bereshit and Shemot are two separate books within the Torah, Exodus is the sequel to Genesis. And we looked at that kind of emphasis a bit briefly last week. For the last few weeks, we've encountered important events in that book of beginnings, which culminated with Jacob, who became more and more known as Israel, and his descendants settling in Egypt. Following the emotionally moving record concerning Joseph and his reconciliation with his brothers and with his elderly father, the Torah provides a record of the names of those who settled in Egypt. The text in Genesis 46 in verse 8 states, and these are the names of the sons of Israel who came to Egypt. Interestingly, Exodus provides its own record of names. So it begins, and these are the names of the sons of Israel who came to Egypt. An emphasis on names, 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 names. Now the rabbis identify the connection between the opening words of Shemot, names, with the record of names that's found in Genesis 46. And they provide some intriguing interpretive possibilities as they look at these texts. The rabbi, about a couple hundred years before Nachmanides, Rashi, while building on the term name within Exodus 1:1, he, how should I put it? He suggested that the opening words are in fact a demonstration of God's great love for Israel. And in fact, he uses in that particular case one of the alternative ways of addressing God, namely Hashem, the name. And he says, as God named the individual stars of the heavens, so also he named or took notice of each individual person within Israel. So Isaiah 40:26, he suggested, reflects the same thought. What's Isaiah 40, verse 26, you might say? Well, I'm glad you asked. Turn your eyes to the heavens. Who created these? He brings them each out in sequence, listen, summoning each one by name. As God named individual stars in the heavens, he also named or took notice of each individual person within Israel. Now in the Midrash, the sages provide an interesting interpretive expansion on the text, inspired by the individual names, once again, that opens the portion. And according to the Midrash on this particular text, the opening words of Shemot, name, speaks about the ultimate, there's that term again, redemption or liberation of the Messianic age. It says, and these are the names of the sons of Israel who came to Egypt. These names are mentioned here on account of the pending liberation of Israel. Reuben, I have surely seen the affliction of my people. That's a quotation of Exodus 3:7. But in effect, it's also a quotation of Genesis 29:32, where Leah said, I'm naming this son Reuben because God has seen my affliction. The Midrash goes on. Shimon, and God heard their groaning. Exodus 2:24. Shimon is the word that comes from the term heard. Are you beginning to see the connections? Asher, all nations will call you happy. That's the meaning of the name Asher. For you will be a land of delights, says the Lord of hosts. That's a quotation of Malachi 3:12. Joseph, For God will one day again rescue Israel from the wicked dominion as he has liberated them, as he has liberated them from Egypt. As it says, and now Isaiah 11 is quoted. And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord will set his hand again, Hebrew, Yosef, getting a connection, the second time to recover the remnant of his people. So given that text, just for a second, let's recall the great messianic significance of Isaiah 11. You'll recognize it. The text begins, then a shoot. What would we call a shoot? The beginnings of a branch. Well, yeah, not as in bang bang shoot.
Or Michelle shoot.
Or Michelle shoots. Where was I? Getting shot up. All right. Will spring from the stem of Jesse, and a branch. By the way, remember that's a messianic title. And a branch from his roots will bear fruit. The Spirit of the Lord will rest on him. That's a text that Yeshua himself appropriated. Then in that day, the coming messianic age, the nations will resort to the root of Jesse, who will stand as a signal, a banner for the peoples. That's the background of the text that's associated with Joseph. So you can see the pictures of the Messianic age here. And as many have pointed out, the events of the Exodus, in fact, provided the paradigm, the pattern for the days of Messianic liberation. You see, God acted in a certain manner in the past, and it's understood he will act in a similar manner in the future. During the late Second Temple period, in fact, the Exodus was the event that provided the basic definition of the Jewish concept of redemption or rescue and liberation. And notably, it's within this context that Yeshua demonstrated his Mosaic qualities or characteristics. In fact, a good chunk of the gospel written by Levi, Hashliach, Matthew, shows him in exactly that light. Now, coming back to our time, since it's again the time to re-engage this book of Shemot, or names, we should read the record of Israel's redemptive past with an expectant eye towards the approaching messianic future that we prayed for during part of our service already. And at the same time, we are encouraged to do just that later in our Parashah, chapter 3, the burning bush instance. And by the beginning of this week's Parashah, Exodus 6, 1-8, which was already read, we're encouraged by the beginning of that next passage. In other words, we're encouraged by the God whom we can't name. Do you remember the burning bush text? When the Lord saw that he had turned aside, he being Moses, to see, God called out to him in the middle of the bush. And he said, "Moses, Moses." And Moses answered, "Hineni, here I am." Not, "Oh, by the way, take a look, God, I'm standing here in front of you." It's a specific word that indicates I'm at your service. An important term, found repeatedly, but perhaps not repeatedly enough through the Tanakh. And so God said, "I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob." At this, Moses hid his face because he was afraid to look upon God. Now look, we sometimes like to think that we're on a spiritual quest, searching for God. And this idea fits right into the flow of our day. Torah, in fact, turns this idea on its head to reveal that we flatter ourselves with the idea that we are looking for God, when in reality it is God who's looking for us. And in a classic text, the great rabbi of the last generation, Abraham Joshua Heschel, wrote a book, God in Search of Man. Or we would retitle it nowadays, God in Search of Humans. In fact, God's search for humankind is one of his distinguishing marks in all of Scripture. So, early on in Exodus, we find Moses who's herding his father-in-law's sheep, as it says, on the far side of the desert. By the way, that's a nice way of saying in the middle of nowhere. It's at this time when God reveals himself to him out of that burning bush. And as Moses recognized that, he has to turn aside from his own agenda to see what's going on. And when he does, he realizes he's encountering God, and he hides his face. because he's afraid to look at God. Friends, such awe is a sign that we're really in the presence of God, not just in some spiritual phenomenon that we may have conjured up. In the presence of the God of Scripture, you stand back in awe. The perfect pattern for this is in the text that becomes central to Kedushah, the extended third paragraph in the Amidah, when Isaiah found himself in the presence of God. And he said, uh-oh. Yeah, I heard it out there. I'm in trouble. That's right. You see, if we don't have this sense of awe at the encounter with God, we might well be talking about a God or talking to a God of our own making. So we might think that we're searching for God, but he's really searching for us. In the same way, or in the same vein, we might think that we can figure out and define God. But God is actually seeking to reveal himself to us. And in fact, all of our labels and dogmas tend to get in the way. In the encounter at the burning bush, Moses asks God for his name. Back to our theme. So he can tell the Israelites who's sending him to free them. And God, in the text that we read last week, said to Moses, Eyeh Asher Eyeh. And then he continued, so you will say to the Israelites, Eyeh, I am, sent me to you. And God said further to Moses, so you will say to the Israelites, Yod He Vav He. Those are four, I was about to say 4 Hebrew letters. There are actually 3 Hebrew letters, but there's 4 of them there. And if you can't figure out that math, that's Jewish math. Don't worry about it. Anyhow, say to the Israelites, Yod He Vav He, the God of your ancestors, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob has sent me to you. This shall be my name forever. And to give us some understanding of what that means there, my remembrance from generation to generation. This is what will distinguish how you remember me. Now, God's response to the question, what is your name, is as he responds to it, it's actually, I will go with you. And I remind you of this virtually every time this text comes up. He's telling Moses and he's telling us, you can't name me. I am the God that simply can't be named. But then once he's made this clear to Moses, he reveals his name, so to speak, Yod He Vav He. We pronounce this name as the Lord, or Adonai, and sometimes people refer to it as Hashem, which is Hebrew, literally for the name. And we do so since the exact pronunciation of the name has in fact been lost. And even more so, Jewish tradition forbids one to try to pronounce it. In other words, we can't name God. This tradition is a healthy reminder that we're still dealing with the God we can't name, and that ultimately we still need to let God say, I will go with you. But then God does give Moses a name, the Yod He Vav He, the God of your ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Now, this name signifies not a specific verbal formula, a way of addressing God, but it's a statement. It's a statement about his character as the covenant-keeping God who will act to fulfill his purpose, who will act to fulfill his promises, who will bring about liberation, who will usher in the Messianic age that we look for, and who will go with us until, in fact, beyond then. This meaning of name as reputation or character comes up again in the next parsha, this week's parsha, which was read to you. God spoke to Moses, and he said to him, I am the Lord. I appeared to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, remember, as El Shaddai, the God who's more than sufficient for every need. But then he goes on to say, I did not make myself known to them by my name, Yod He Vav He. Now some read as they try to translate this, I did not make my name, Yod He Vav He, known to them. But I did not make myself known by my name, Yod He Vav He, reflects the original Hebrew better. And in fact, it's been the dominant translation within the Jewish world for about 1,000 years. So, hear me carefully then as we derive some significance from this. Yod He Vav He is not a completely new and unknown name, because that wouldn't have been very reassuring to anyone. Rather, this was a familiar name, but one among several, including El Shaddai, that our ancestors knew. The patriarchs and matriarchs did know and use the name Yod He Vav He. You can find it in the text repeatedly. But they did not experience its full meaning, about to be demonstrated, as the one who is faithful to his covenant and who will bring it to pass, regardless of all the obstacles, and will walk with his people in the meantime, and in fact for all time. When Scripture says we will know his name, it's not concerned about pronouncing the specific word, since our ancestors, the patriarchs and matriarchs, already could do that. But it's about knowing his character, his reputation, his nature, as the God who keeps his covenant. It's about experiencing the reality of the God who goes with us on a daily basis. And there's one other thing. We can't name God, but he can tell us his name. And he does this so that we will reflect his name. God tells Moses that he is Adonai, the Lord, the covenant-keeping God, who's going to come through and fulfill his word to Israel. And then he makes it clear throughout the story that follows that he expects this same covenant faithfulness from Israel. The qualities in himself that God reveals to us are the ones he wants to see in us. What God makes known to us, he wants to make known through us as well. So we can't name God, but he can reveal himself, and he does so, I'm going to suggest, most fully in the person of the Messiah, Yeshua. In fact, 9 times in the gospel written by Yochanan, Yeshua says of himself, Ego Eimi. That's the Greek equivalent of I am, echoing the Hebrew word Ehyeh. Yeshua, as the God of Israel revealed among us, is not just the truth, but truth that demands a response, which is why Yochanan concluded his account of the life of Yeshua in chapter 20. But these are written so that you may come to believe Yeshua is the Messiah, and that through believing you may have life in his name. And what does it mean to have life in his name? Well, to make that clear, Yochanan provides an epilogue. The risen Messiah, in that epilogue, chapter 21, visits his followers, including Shimon, who had recently denied him 3 times. 3 times Yeshua asked Shimon if he loves him. When Shimon says that he does, Yeshua tells him to feed and to tend his sheep. Quick aside, he's quoting the Haftarah passage from Ezekiel that is read at Hanukkah time. Anyhow, back to my story, as Yochanan concludes his story. He tells him to feed and to tend his sheep, exactly what Yeshua has just given his life to do. He reveals himself as the risen Messiah not only to assure and encourage our faith, and by the way, it's one of the great apologetic assurances for our faith. That was a quick commercial for the class in case you missed it. But he also does it to show us the way we are to live. As those who have heard God's name, we are to reflect the faithfulness of the God who can't be named. And that's your challenge this evening as well. So take on that challenge in the quiet of the next couple minutes as you respond to what God has revealed. And we rise once again as we continue our response to the God who can't be named, but expects us to reflect his name. The response is pages 102 to 107. It's the Elenu. It's the anticipation of that messianic age, liberation and rescue that we've anticipated all the way through, and that in fact our text for tonight anticipate. Now, here's what I anticipate: that you follow the instructions that are contained within the Elenu. There is a line, singular, during which we bow. If you don't know which line it is, keep an eye on him. The cantor in Jewish services leads what's going on, both as to what we're doing and how fast we're doing it. So keep an eye on Jacob. You'll know when to bow and when to conclude your bow. That being said, pages 102 to 107, as I put all the pressure on Jacob.
עלינו לשבח אדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגאי הרצון, ולא שמנו כשמקות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגור עלינו כהמונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוצר הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינת הוא זו לגבי מרומים, הוא אלוהינו עוד. אמת מלכנו אפסולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום להשב אותה. אל לבביך כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת עינו. It is incumbent upon us to praise the Master of all, to exalt the Creator of the world, for he has made us distinct from the nations and unique among the families of the earth. Our destiny is not like theirs, our calling is our task. We bow down in acknowledge before the King that there is none like him. For he stretched forth the heavens like a tent and established the earth. Truly there is none like our Lord and King. As the Torah says, you shall know this day and reflect in your heart that it is the Lord who is God in the heavens above, and on the earth beneath there is none else. We hope, O Lord our God, to soon behold your majestic glory, when all abominations shall be removed, and all false gods shall be at an end. Then shall the world be perfected under the rule of the Lord Almighty, and all mankind shall call upon your name. For to you every knee must bow, and every tongue declare that you are God. Reign over us soon and forever. May the kingdom of David's greater Son be established forever. For then shall the words be fulfilled, the Lord shall be king forever, and the Lord shall be king over all the earth. On that day the Lord shall be one, and his name one. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
You may be seated. I mentioned Jewish custom to you before. Part of Jewish custom is called minhag, and different congregations develop their own minhag. In this particular synagogue, we've developed a minhag called the last man standing.
I thought you were going to go on.
I fooled him.
Ugh.